Zion Yisadek. Yizkar Kolman Chesecha, Va'ilascha, Yidachna Tsev. Yitim Lacha, Bilvavecha, V'chol Atzascha Yimale. Neranano B'shua Secha, V'shem Eloheinu Nidgur. Yimali Adonai Kol Meshale Secha. Ata Yodaiti, Kishia Adonai Meshichai. Yanehu Mishmei Kochel. Figures Yesha Yeminu. Eile Barechev, Eile Basusim. Anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu Nazkir. Heima Korav v'Apollo v'anachnu kamnu v'Neseder. Adonai Heshia Hamelech Yaneinu v'Yem Kareim. Okay. We'll do one more chapter, chapter Yud Aleph. As you know, next week we have the classes, so we're going to switch. Instead of learning the Mimer, the whole week will be dedicated to learning about Pesach according to Chassidus. What? Starting from Monday. Next week, starting from Monday, the classes are from 9:15 to 12 o'clock. And every day from 11 to 12, what we'll be learning is we have a special booklet. It'll be a collage of different subjects related to Pesach, Chassidus. And in the meantime, you have this workbook, which is a review. We'll try to do this tomorrow, see how much we can review until this part. And then after Pesach, we'll continue. So as we said, that he's going into what are the symptoms of Sinas Chinam? How does it express itself? How can I recognize and identify when I see these symptoms that this is coming from Sinas Chinam? And this is what he explained in chapter 9. Then he explained another thing in chapter 10. And now he's bringing up another point in chapter 11. Yud Aleph. Yeah, it's a good idea. Chapter 11 here in Heichaltzu. We're doing the lessons in Heichaltzu, Hebrew, English. And we're up to chapter 11. So in this book, it is page 82. Thank you. Just like I explained before, that as a result of Yeshus, when it comes to learning Torah, sorry, he rang before and I forgot why he rang. Okay, let's change it to. Let's try again. Keep him quiet for a little while. Okay. So, just like we said before about learning, that because of Yeshus, he can't discuss things with another person. He can't have any dialogue with another person. He can't have a chavrusa. He knows better. He understands better. He understands all these things better than another person. It also affects inyani avoda, which means einam yechelim l'sarev u'l'sached yachad, that people can't work together. And the reason is if they she'enei l'chashev klal avoda zalosei, he doesn't give any importance. He looks down completely in a condescending way on the avodah of the other person. Here's another person that's also spending time on davening or spending time on self-refinement, but he puts it all down. He dismisses it. He doesn't even consider that person as a person who's working on self-refinement. Which means he puts down all the avodah the other person does, v'yimas v'yivatel hatev shaloi. And because he sees certain things in the person which are flaws, which are negative things, so therefore even the good in the other person, he puts it down and it's all worthless. So unfortunately, we find this, that sometimes we dislike something in another person. And because we dislike this something, the other person, then the whole entire person is black. That's it, worthless. Why? Because of this thing that whatever it is that they did wrong. Now the truth is, he's going to explain here that humans are humans. We have strengths and we have weaknesses. And just because a person's weak in a certain area, it doesn't mean that everything else that they do and everything else that's good is also worthless. And he's going to elaborate on this. So when someone does something negative, it makes him have this negative outlook on him. And not only that, when he finds a certain fault, even if it's something external, not something that's really related to his avodah. Again, as a person, you see that he's davening, you see that he works on himself. There's something there in some area which is maybe external, and that something is not the way it should be. Yagdil v'yarchiv hadavar, he will expand on this. He will sort of magnify it, make it big, this little thing. That's what he's going to talk about. And he will sort of embarrass that person, put down what that person does. I mean, not mamash a comparison, but I remember there was many years that everyone would speak about Israel and the situation every single Fabrengen, about not giving back land and not giving into terror and not negotiating with them, which now anyone who has his head on his shoulders sees clearly how all this, what it all led to, and sees that the only way to deal with them would be by just telling them there's no way you're getting anything back, and just they would stop. But at that time, the Rebbe said that one of the complaints that he got, or one of the arguments that he got, was how could he give an opinion about Eretz Yisrael? He doesn't even live there. The Rebbe said it reminds him of, there was a very famous blood libel, probably the last blood libel in history, was the one that is called Mishpat Beilis. It was somebody called Mendel Beilis in Russia, that they accused him of the old ancient blood libels, and they said that they kill a Christian child, they take the blood and they use the blood for matzahs. Even though it's known that all these blood libels were false and it was all proven wrong, but according to Kabbalah, there's really something to it, and he's a chassid, so he probably does things according to Kabbalah, and he uses Christian blood for matzahs. As crazy as it sounds, but not so difficult for people who are already anti-Semites to accept it. And it was a big thing that all of Russia was in danger that if the court ruled that he was found guilty, there probably would have been pogroms all over the country. So it was a very big thing. And in fact, the Rebbe Rashab was very involved in helping this Yid in his court case. And so the Rebbe said at one time when the lawyer was presenting the defense, and he said something very, very powerful. So the other lawyer, the prosecuting lawyer, says the letter, when he sent this defense, it was in a letter that he sent, and there was a stamp on the letter. The stamp had the picture of the Tsar, the king, and the picture was upside down. Happily accept his whatever he says. The picture was upside down, and if the picture's upside down, whatever it says in the letter is unacceptable. What's the connection? In the letter, he's stating facts, and the facts are to prove that he's innocent. But that's an example where you take something external, you make it into a big monster, and wow, this is such a terrible thing. And as a result of that, you basically overlook anything else that could be possibly true. That's if it's something external. How much more so if he finds a fault in the other person, which is a real serious thing. And it says, Ein Adam Tzadik, people are not perfect. Everyone has something which is a flaw. It's part of being human. But as a result of that, Yifsek b'shvil zeh, because of this, he will basically sort of rule out all the good that the person does, or yapsik. Right, means that this will be his way of ruling out, like a psak, that everything that he does good is worthless. It's as if it doesn't exist. Don't even pay any attention to it. It's like nothing. The yagdil, and he'll magnify this negative thing so much more on the good. Chas v'shalom, acho eslo kilo einet. So basically, here's a person like everybody else that has good and has bad, not perfect. But what happens is when he does something good, he'll put it down, no big deal, or he did it for the wrong reasons, for some ulterior motive. He'll find ways of explaining that whatever good thing he did is really nothing. On the other hand, when he does something bad, that's when he takes this negative thing and he magnifies it and he exaggerates and he makes it bigger and he talks about it to the point that this takes over the show. But the truth is that's not the real way to look at things. Why? The fact that this person serves Hashem in davening, and he occupies himself in Torah study, the kiyum mitzvahs, and he does observe mitzvahs. I mean, think of it in the two general categories. One category in Yiddishkeit is mitzvahs between man and Hashem, like Shabbos and Kashrus, davening, and tefillin, mezuzah, matzah, and so on. Then there are other mitzvahs which are between one person and another, to be kind, to be caring, to be sensitive, to go out of your way to give tzedakah, visit the sick, and all those things. So generally speaking, you do find that kind of an attitude. Let's say if I'm a person that I'm very passionate about good character traits, and I see someone that doesn't have good character traits, and he'll say, yeah, but on the other hand, they're very careful with washing their hands for eating, they're very careful with making a bracha. When they daven, they say every word carefully. And to say all that is worthless, it's not worth anything, because look, they don't care about another person, or they're not nice to another person, or they embarrass another person. So all their davening and all their learning and all their mitzvahs, it's all worthless. And you see that he's not a real person. Is there any truth to such an argument? And you find the reverse, that there are people who are dafka very kind and very good-natured and very sensitive and very caring and have all the qualities of a good Jewish heart the way it's supposed to be, but they're not necessarily learning or davening or keeping Shabbos properly. And somebody would say all that good that they're doing is worthless because they don't keep Shabbos properly, they don't daven properly, they rush through the davening. Is there any truth to that? I mean, that's a general division. Mitzvah between man and mitzvah between man and Hashem, but there are also details. So he's going to explain now why this attitude is wrong. Because the truth is, what he does for Hashem in davening or in learning or mitzvahs, it's positive. In fact, this is sort of describing a specific individual. This is his main avodah that he's busy with, learning Torah and observing mitzvahs. That's what he's occupied with most of the day. The fact that he has a negative character trait, let's say he has anger, he's an angry person, the fish is stuck in a dying because he didn't correct that character trait. There's a pasuk. It says, man was born like a wild young donkey. In other words, Hashem creates us naturally that we have certain nature of being wild and doing what we want and having negative character traits, which means in every human being, when we're born, we're not refined. We're born in a refined way. But Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that as soon as he was born, what happened? The whole house lit up. Why? Because it's such a great tzaddik. Okay, he was born a tzaddik. Most people, 99.99 people on the planet aren't born like that. We're born with the character traits that we have. And therefore, Zehu Abedas, in fact, this is our a mission, and this to serve Hashem all our life and to refine our character traits. Which means if I was born with a nature to be angry, if I was born with a nature to be jealous, and we say Hashem is the one who created me, so Hashem gave me this nature. Why? He wants me not to be angry. Why did he give me a nature of anger? Why did he give me a nature of jealousy? Why did he give me a nature to be arrogant? And the answer is, he gave me these character traits and I should refine them. That was the purpose. Shalzeh Nemar, in reference to this, it says in the pasuk, Yimeish Neseinu Bohem Shivim Shana. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. We also say it in davening, and it says that person was given 70 years, meaning 70 years of life. But the word Bohem, Beis Hey Mem, are the same letters as the word Behema. The word Behema has a Beis, a Hey, and a Mem, except there's two Heys, but it's these three letters. And what does it mean? The Koi Agamidus Roy is the Tivim Shal Nefesh Bahamas. It's alluding to the 7 character traits of the Nefesh Bahamas, which are negative character traits. And that's what it means. Hashem gave us 70 years to be able to refine the 7 meters, as if to say every 10 years it corresponds to another one of these 10 meters, because each one of the meters has 10 different aspects to it. So we need 70 years. The efshar l'saken hakel ka'achas. You can't correct everything and you can't repair everything at once. Rak ma'at agorshanu mipanecha. Slowly, Hashem says, I will drive them out of the land. This is alluding to a pasuk in Chumash where it talks about Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem says that when you come to the land, I won't see to it that all the nations of the world will just be disappeared and the land will be vacant and waiting for you to come in. That's not going to work, because if the land is vacant, then what's going to happen? All sorts of animals will start coming there because nobody's living there. So Hashem says first there'll be some people that have to be removed from the land, and then you didn't move in. Then more people will move out of the land and you didn't move in, and slowly it'll basically change from those evil people that live there, and it'll be given over to the Yidden. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you could remember or you read this, but I remember during COVID, and what they told everybody during COVID, stay indoors. People stayed indoors. And there were certain places, I don't remember the name, but I just remember there were certain places where they said that animals started to come around in the city because nobody was around. They came around in the city. I forgot which places these were, because they used to be there once upon a time. Then people built cities there, so they went out to the woods, and suddenly it becomes empty. They came in. But we use this pasuk to describe another thing, how we're supposed to get rid of our nefesh bahamas. You can't get rid of everything at once. You have to do things slowly. I work on one thing, then I work on another thing, then I work on another thing. And that's why Hashem gave us 70 years, all this time to work on different things. Which means that if I read in a sefer where it says, anger is not a good character trait, it doesn't mean that tomorrow morning I'm finished. I have no more anger anymore and I'm in total control. No, now I know what I need to work on. But to work on it and changing a character trait, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that these are things that take a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's very hard until you work on it and work on it and work on it until you can actually change a character trait. This requires a lot of avodah. After over the course of a lot of time, and during this time, I'm really sort of laboring. I'm working hard in davening, working hard by meditating on things about Hashem, thinking about the importance of my nefesh elokis, overcoming and overpowering the attributes and the character traits of my nefesh bahamis. Slowly, machlish, he weakens and he is able to refine the midas tivim, the nefesh habahamis. So therefore, if a person, for example, was born with a certain character trait, and you see that 10 years later it's still not corrected, it doesn't mean that they're negligent. It means I'm working on it, but it takes time for it to change. In fact, this reminds me of a certain mashpia that told this over to his students, that he once asked the Rebbe a question. And the question was, sometimes he's sort of speaking to the students and he's talking to them about changing certain things, but I know myself that I myself haven't changed that within myself. So in a sense, it's not really emes. When I'm telling them to change it, I'm not being truthful because I myself didn't change it. On the other hand, I know I should really be talking to the students about such a thing. So the question to the Rebbe was, should I or should I stop? So the Rebbe said, if you're demanding it of yourself and you're working on it on yourself, then it's okay to demand it of your students. In other words, if you don't care about it when it comes to yourself, and you'll talk to the student that they should care about it, that's not going to work. Because that means you're not truthful about it. You're telling them that this is something important, and you yourself don't care about it. I once heard from a chassid that there was someone in his town that he was an observant Jew, but he was a little bit sort of light about different things in Torah, mitzvahs, wasn't really on the level that the average chassid was. And he came to him and he said, I like to teach children. Maybe I can teach your children. Could you hire me to teach your children? So he said, no, I don't think it's a good idea. He says, why? You worried about me because of my level of Yiddishkeit? Don't worry. I'll teach them everything right, the way it's supposed to be. So he said, that's exactly what I'm worried about. They'll grow up and they'll say, we'll be whatever we are, but I'll teach other people how to be the right way. So basically, if I'm not doing it, someone said that, his father never put on tefillin. He would run to work in the morning. But he used to tell his son, hey kid, remember, before you go to school, put on tefillin. And he couldn't understand how come his child grew up and didn't sort of keep the tefillin. He told him every day, put on tefillin. So the answer was the same thing. He learned from you. That he goes without tefillin. He'll tell his kids to put on tefillin. And then his kids will do the same, which means nothing will happen. So basically, if I don't care about it and I demand of it another person, that's one thing. But if I care about it and I'm working on it, it doesn't mean just because it hasn't changed doesn't mean that I'm not working on it. In fact, sometimes you can work on something and work on something and work on something, and you don't even see the change. And when you do see the change, let's say over a course of 5 years, you see it changed. What do you think happened? That for 4 years and 364 days, nothing changed. And on the last day, everything changed. Or does it mean that every single day there was a little bit of a dent in whatever it is? Obviously. That's the famous story with Rabbi Akiva, and what motivated him to learn Torah, because he saw a rock, and he saw a hole in the rock, and he couldn't understand who in the world could have made such a hole in the rock. And then he realized there was water dripping on that spot, apparently dripping for who knows how many years, hundreds of years, and the water dripped on the rock consistently in the same spot again and again and again and again, and eventually it penetrated the rock. And then he said to himself, if water which is so soft can penetrate a rock which is so hard, then Torah, which is so hard, can definitely penetrate my brain, which is not like a rock. And as a result of that, he was confident that he could learn Torah. So basically, the same thing with character traits. I can work on a character trait. I don't see any results on Sunday. I don't see any results on Monday. But in reality, every single time that I work on it, it's making some little bit of a dent. But it takes time. And that's the point that he's making. Let's turn to page 86. If you work on it, ultimately you'll get there. Things will be changed. And sometimes the person actually needs help from another person, like we said in the previous chapter. On his own, because everyone has self-love, he doesn't even know and recognize that he has a negative character trait. He needs a good friend to make him aware of it. Well, the Hamzi Eitzes and find solutions and advice. What can I do to change it? So if I really love that person truthfully, if I would have the character trait that you're supposed to have to love another person, love every Yid, Ahavas Yisrael, then he should make that person aware, but in a discreet way, not in a way that you're embarrassing him in front of others. Point out to him, by the way, what you're doing was not so appropriate. And of course, to say it in a gentle way, in a soft way, not in a way of putting the person down. And then also, not just to tell them what's wrong and drop the bomb, but Yamtzila Eitza Echlataka, and should give him advice how to correct it. Instead, he doesn't do that. What he does instead is Mavatal Mavazel Mashpalai say. He considers the other person nothing, he humiliates him, he degrades him, and that's between in his own mind. And how much more so, if he degrades him in front of other people, which means he'll put him down. Like the story that I just told, those of you who were here before, that, someone is there and he's ready to be part of the minyan, and someone else says, but you're not a Torah scholar, so we can't use you for the minyan. Could you imagine how degrading that is, how embarrassing it is? So, this is an indication that where is it all coming from? It's coming from the sinas chinam. Al sinasai say that he hates him. Sheseinai say belibay, he hates him in his heart. Ve'einai chafetz klal b'tavasa, he does not seek his welfare. He doesn't really want that this person should be in a good place. So the truth of the matter is that if I see someone that's not in a good place, I should want to change that person. I'm not talking about someone who's not keeping Torah mitzvahs and reach out to him. Someone who is keeping Torah mitzvahs, but he has certain character traits which are negative. But then, because of the feeling of love for another Jew, I should really want that person to change, because every Yid should want that the world should be filled with true service of Hashem. Every person should have this genuine desire. That's Hashem's will. In fact, there's a medrash where it says, in the Shema, we say, "V'haptas Hashem Elokecha," you should love God, your God. So the medrash says, and how do I know if I really love Hashem? And the answer is, if I make an effort that other people should love Hashem, then I know that I really love Hashem. In other words, if I really love Hashem, then I want other people to love Hashem. So if I see someone who doesn't love Hashem, I'm supposed to feel angry and hate, or I'm supposed to feel bad that Hashem is not being loved by this person, and think, what can I do to get him also to love Hashem properly? So the fact that what registers in my heart is a feeling of hate, or a feeling of anger, or a feeling of putting this person down, and that's basically coming from a place of just my personal negative character trait, not because I'm really interested in helping that person. And it's interesting, even today, it's hard to believe, but there's still people today that will put down someone. I just spoke to a friend of mine that he discovered just recently a relative of his in Israel, not a very distant relative, pretty close one. I think it's his grandfather's brother. And he lives in Israel, totally not religious, even though his father was religious. So he went to visit him for the first time. And when he came to the place, he saw that it happens to be a place which is full from Jews and Hasidic Jews. And he said that it's very disheartening and very disappointing that these people could walk right by me. They'll never say hello. They'll never say good morning. They'll never acknowledge me, because he's not religious. But from that alone, you see what would happen if they would say hello. What happened if they would acknowledge? What happened if someone would invite him to a Shabbos table? We don't know how things could have changed. But what's happening is anger. Then there's worse. There's certain places where, they can throw stones at someone because they're driving by their street on Shabbos. In fact, there was when the Rebbe, tomorrow is the day Chazai Adar, when the Rebbe had his stroke. And different people came to doctors and physicians to treat the Rebbe. One of the person was an Israeli, very big, I think he was a physical therapist. And he would come with his wife, but she didn't go into the 770. She sat in the car, and he went into the Rebbe's room. She told the story publicly. And they used to beg her, what are you sitting in the car for by yourself? Come in, they'll give her a place, they'll sit her down by a chair in the office, they'll talk to someone, no, she'll go in. Eventually, she decided to go in. Her husband himself, who treated the Rebbe, he said that the Rebbe didn't say anything to him, but just the Rebbe looked at him, and he felt he was transformed. He got more involved in Yiddishkeit. And she also got more involved in Yiddishkeit, but she said the reason why she never wanted to go in was she was traumatized when she was a child. When she was a child, and she walked by certain streets, if she wasn't dressed sneezing or Shabbos, and she was carrying something, they literally threw rocks at her. So she would never have anything to do with anybody that's religious. Now, the person who throws the rocks, what is he thinking? That by me doing this person will get closer to Yiddishkeit? Or is just me venting my anger? That's what he's saying. If I really care about Hashem, and that's why I'm upset, then I should care to the point that what can I do to make this person also love Hashem? Not what can I do to vent my anger? So that's the sign that it's really something in me that needs to be corrected. It's my hate, unfortunately, and these are sort of my legitimate excuses why I hate it. Because if I'm thinking about that it bothers me that there's someone who's not davening or someone who's not learning, then I should try to do things in a way that would bring the person to do that. Like in this case, if I'm humiliating him and embarrassing him in public, that's going to bring the opposite results. So the reason why this, remember, we're talking about a person, remember, who's an Ovid. And that was, I told you, the shocking thing. He's describing a person who is involved in davening and working on himself. So what's wrong? What's wrong is it's not true Avodah. Even though he himself is serving Hashem through Torah study and through davening, what he's lacking is bittul, and he's lacking this putting himself at the side and doing what's right rather than doing what satisfies me and my feelings and my emotions. Page 88, whatever he does, he's very obsessed with his own yeshus. He's very aware of, I daven, I'm learning, I'm refining myself. So even though he's doing those things, but what it's doing, it's inflating his ego, his yeshus. And when the yeshus is inflated, that causes the person to feel hate towards another person. So this is really a very powerful thing of how to look at people. And in fact, what he describes here is if you think of, say, the Rebbe and the Rebbe Sichos, you see that the Rebbe's approach is like this. You have a person, and you look at this person, you might see 99.99 negative things. The Rebbe will find a little dot that is positive and see to develop that dot, that good in this person. And that's the way it is with every single person. The Rebbe would find what this person could contribute, what good they can do. And hopefully by doing the good that they can do in any specific area, that will eventually transform the person more on a larger scale. There are other people that are the opposite. They see somebody who was a very good person. They're going to take the magnifying glass and look for that little dot of something which is not good, and they'll magnify that, and they will exaggerate that, and they'll make a big deal out of that. And as a result of that, sort of put down all the good that they do. It's all worthless and it's no good because this and this and this that they're doing. Finish the kitzur. Appeared binyani aveda. Divisiveness comes as a result of avodah. In other words, the reason why I'm upset at this person is because they don't have good character traits. But really, it's not true. The real reason is sinna, the fact that I have hate, and that comes because heder avodah amiti. Even though I'm davening and I'm learning and I'm doing all these wonderful things, but it's coming from a place of yeshus rather than a place of bittul. So that means that bittul is really at the core. It's something which, and again, I can't just talk to myself and say become bottle, but it just means that to recognize that these things are coming from Yeshus, and that alone will help the person sort of try to discipline themselves that they don't look at another person in such a way. In other words, look at the positive things, look at it in a positive way, and respect that person for the good that they do, and maybe even let them know that you respect them for the good that they do, and that works much better. I remember many years ago, I was working with some kids that came from public school and they went to yeshiva, and it was a transition. These were young kids, like 12-year-olds. And in those days, there was no special yeshiva for a child that age, so they had to fit into the regular yeshiva. And one of the children was just having a hard time. Obviously, he wasn't so, it wasn't so intellectually, he wasn't able to chop everything that was going on. He just didn't get it. And therefore, he also had a problem with the class and socially. So I wrote to the Rebbe, what can I do for this boy? He has a hard time understanding what he's learning and he's not getting it. And of course, if you're in a class and you can't keep up with the class, then you're discouraged and everything else goes wrong. So Rebbe answered, I should find someone who knows less than him, and he should teach that someone. And that's obvious what that would accomplish. Interesting thing was that 6 months later, his parents were also by the Rebbe. At that point, they still were not religious parents, but nevertheless, they got a bit closer. And they mentioned to the Rebbe about this same boy, their son, that he's not being successful in his learning. And the Rebbe told him the same thing that he told me. Find someone that knows less than him. In other words, by him teaching that someone, it'll feel better about himself. It'll add to his self-esteem. And once he'll feel better about himself, more good will be coming out of it. And that's why one of the most important things is simcha, self-esteem, but not yeshus. Yeshus is something else. Yeshus means obsessed with self, self-centered. That's damaging. But self-esteem is something very healthy and very important. And therefore, when you see someone that has good things and bad things, you have to make them feel good about the good that they do. And hopefully that'll overflow to the other things as well. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll take the traditional 5-minute break, which turns into 7, 8, 9-minute break, and then we'll go into Mashiach Gula. Any day, free time between cleaning one thing and the other, we can have a look at this. But tomorrow I'm going to try to catch up a little bit, go through the workbook until the chapter we're up to before we go on further. A certain way, after chapter 12, it starts a little bit of it's continuing, but something a little bit new and different. So it's a good place to stop. Yes. Have a great day.
You too. They were like talking about how we should see other people. The red was like explaining how we should see ourselves also, and like forgiving ourselves for not having to find over.
Very good point. You're right. Yeah.
Very important. Yeah.
Right. Whatever we just said about how to look at other people should also be applied how to look at ourselves.
Right. It was 70 years to refine ourselves and figure it
The
out.
first 70 years, the second
Right.
70 years we go.
Do it again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope it's okay, but I told Alicia Marshall, who told me that my husband is suffering horribly from sciatica. And they're obviously always under huge stress. So, the fever. So I said he could call you.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna bother you, but
No,
I
I
said,
don't.